In this video, we're going to be talking about the state of the tipping culture in 2024. This post was made in 2023, but I figured it would still apply to today, especially because it seems to be ever more so increasing in terms of tips and the conflict that people are having with it. Now, I thought I would be able to give my 2 cents on it because I've worked on both sides. I had a position that tips was a good chunk of the money I made, and I've also been on the other side having to pay the tips. And so the primary post is am I the only person who feels so bullied by tip culture in restaurants that eating out is hardly enjoyable anymore? I know that servers work hard for their tips, and I understand that everyone needs to make a living, but nowadays with prices at restaurants going up plus the cost of tips, it's pretty much unaffordable to eat at restaurants anymore. Nowadays, I can only afford the cost of a meal plus a little tip, but not a great tip. Yet the looks I get when giving a 10 to 15% tip is horrible. Guess I gotta learn to cook. I do agree with that. I mean, learning to cook for yourself is enjoyable and it's cheaper and you actually know what you're eating as well. But anyway, I agree that tipping culture is getting out of control. The thought of mandatory tips plus the food prices increasing doesn't make sense to me because it's just not sustainable. For you just can't keep increasing both of them. And I feel like a lot of restaurants nowadays are actually just increasing to increase, but they're not really offering anything else in return. I mean, it's just the same food, and I know it's inflation and things like that, but yeah, it's that much of an increase. It's just really not. I don't think it's really acceptable. I mean, tipping should be either an option or it would be should be mandatory, but it should be displayed on the menu that it is mandatory. And I don't think it should be like a mandatory 15% here, 10% there, 5% here, trying to skew the numbers so you're not really sure what's going on. That's always been a little bit fishy. And also, they just keep increasing prices without paying the servers more or the people who work there more, the cooks and things like that. It's just not a very healthy environment, I think. Very conducive to longevity for the restaurant business as a whole. Because, I mean, I pretty much don't, well, there's multiple reasons why I don't eat out a lot anymore. But, I mean, that's one of them. It's just, it's expensive. And then on top of that, it's like they want us to tip at least 15%. And now 15% is actually like super low. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some places where they like almost goes up to 50% or something. Like, what? 50%? I mean, first of all, the servers need to earn that. I definitely think that it goes without saying that you should be trying to serve the customer to earn the tip and not just think that it you deserve to have it because you exist. That's a load of baloney. It just doesn't. I think that's definitely the wrong mindset to have when being a server. And looking at some of these comments, it's like, I've always been a fair tipper, and I will not feel an ounce of guilt if I don't give into all the extra BS. As an aside, learning how to cook has saved me thousands of dollars. It's totally worth it and fun. True and true. I don't really feel guilt either. It's unfortunate that so many people are trying to guilt trip you into doing that kind of thing nowadays with the tipping. But yeah, it is honestly just ridiculous how it's almost like they're just trying to test the waters, see how much they can keep pushing and pushing until people start pushing back. It's what I feel like they're doing because they're not only increasing their prices without paying their servers more, but then they're just adding the tips on top of increasing the prices. That way they don't have to increase the wages of their servers. That way they're just making more money. And it's all around just not a practice that I'm really a fan of anyway. I think after demanding tips from self checkout, it needs to be outlawed. Yeah, tips from self checkout. Thankfully, I have yet to see that, but if I do, that that we've gone too far. I mean, we've already gone too far, but that's just that's just ridiculous. It's like tipping for a commodity. It's like, what? I, I'm paying for it. There doesn't need to be a tip. It's just preposterous to think. Yeah, if I go shopping and no one helps me except a random worker that tells me that peas are in aisle 14, I have a feeling my tips won't get back to her, even though I would prefer any tip go her way. Yeah, I don't think it needs to be implemented everywhere. It doesn't need to be implemented everywhere. The thought of that is it just doesn't apply because you can't just keep applying tips to everything. It The only reason there was ever really tips to begin with, as far as I know, is because there was servers who that's how they made their money, is that because they were a server, they were paid, I believe, like below minimum wage, and now it's minimum wage or something like that. But then all the tips they kept. And the fact that we're going from that, where it's like it was a production where the more that you serve, the more you got, to just tipping to tip for somebody doing their job. I I don't see the benefit in that. I mean, of course, if you want to make a charitable donation, go right ahead, but as a mandatory when you're doing the shopping and you're self-checkout, like tipping at Walmart, is that really where we're at now? WTF, where are they asking for tips at a self-checkout? That's absurd. True, brother. The girl at my local sandwich shop audibly scoffed when I dropped $1 in the tin bin. I'm still like mad about it. I mean, unfortunately, I've been the same way in the past, and I have definitely learned from that you don't you don't deserve the tip for being alive. It's not even that you deserve the tip anyway. It's really that you should do your best to try to earn that tip. And then that way, if you do get it, great. And if not, it sucks. But that's just how life is. I mean, especially nowadays, a lot of people don't have a lot of money and they don't want to tip. And some people just don't want to tip, period. And that's just how life goes. So getting mad when somebody does tip is a little ridiculous. I would have broke my hand digging back into that. It's funny they said that because we actually had an old lady run off with some of our tip money before. That was a crazy experience. Why are we being asked to tip at a dog daycare? That's like tipping at a regular daycare. Next, the vet will expect a tip. I'm tired of tipping people for doing the bare minimum, their job. That's exactly it. It's like you shouldn't have to tip somebody because they're doing their job. And like I said, it goes back to the servers got tips because that was the way they made their money. You, they're just trying they're just trying to find ways to make more profit without having to pay their employees. That's all this is. It's just a game of how much money can we get them to spend so we keep most of it. So we keep more money and then they are effectively paying our employees' salaries. And they think we don't understand. Well, a lot of people don't understand because it's still such a problem. But there's a few of us out there who still have a brain attached to our head, inside our head, attached to our shoulders. You know what I mean? Get this BS. Lots of for-profit daycares have effing fundraisers like they are Girl Scouts. $500 a week, and these a-holes still need to have a fundraiser for supplies. WTF does the $500 a week per kid go to? Per kid, not power kid. I mean that's really the question. I would love to be able to answer that, but I don't know. I mean, the only answer I'd be able to give is the company itself. It's obviously not going to the employees. But yeah, tipping is just getting so out of hand nowadays. It's crazy to see. I'm appalled at the tip request at fast food places now. Yeah, I'm okay with tips at fast food restaurants just because that's how things have been done for so long. But I don't it doesn't need to be more than 15%. I think 15% is like the max and it should not be mandatory, of course. It Either these companies need to start charging or either charging more and then paying their employees more or start making these tips more acceptable to people and feel like they actually give them the chance to want to tip instead of, oh, it's a mandatory tip, you have to tip. Because newsflash, telling people they have to do something makes them not want to do it. It's crazy. I almost never go out to a sit down meal. It's just not in the budget too much, and it's pretty exhausting to go out with a small child who wants to climb and fidget. I budget for a meal, tax, and tip. I don't mind tipping. I look at the menu in advance. The restaurant owners love to nickel and dime with BS mystery fees that show up on the bill. COVID recovery fee. Didn't my taxes already cover that? Staff health care fee. That's the employer's responsibility. True. Cost of living fee. Sir, my sandwich already cost 25% more. Fee for the F of it fee. Fee fi fo fee. It's just aggravating. What sh- it makes what should be a nice meal with a family feel like I'm getting scammed at a sketchy car dealership. It's not worth it. I'll just cook at home. Though yeah, with tips, I'm super sick of these giant screens being flipped around at me everywhere I go so everyone in my small town knows how much I tip. I've definitely noticed nosy people staring and I don't like feeling like it's a strategy. Yeah, I mean, all of this really just goes back to the whole point that the cost of everything is going up. And not only that, but now they're trying to sneak in all these little other tips that you didn't even know existed type deal to get you to spend more money. And it's just so sketchy. It's just so sketchy. It leaves a bad taste in people's mouth, no pun intended. Because it's like, well, you can't even trust them because not only are they increasing the prices, but then they're increasing tips, and then they're also increasing tips here and there to further increase the price. I mean, there was that picture that was going around of that person who took, it looked like a larger group out for a dinner, and the tips were, oh my word, I can't even remember. It was like over 50% at the end of the day, I think. It was something absurd. So yeah, my thoughts on this whole tip situation is, of course, tips should never be mandatory. The companies should stop trying to, like she alluded to, nickel and dime everybody, sneak in all these little different tips that aren't going to, they're not even going to the employees at the end of the day. It's going to the employer. I mean, it might say it's going to the employees, but we all know that ain't happening. So yeah, I would, obviously this video is not going to change anything either, but I just wanted to give my opinion on the whole situation because as somebody who's worked on the side of receiving the tips and who has had to pay the tips, I think the whole tipping situation is getting out of control, needs to be toned back quite a bit. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I like doing these Reddit thread reviews where I just go through, read comments, and kind of get my feedback on them. These are fun. I plan on doing a lot of different Reddit review type deals. There's a Reddit for everything, so there's honestly endless content there. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like and let me know down below what other kind of Reddit videos you'd like to see in the future. And I hope to see you guys around. Peace.